All right, this episode is brought to you by S&P Inc. Let them rebuild your confidence. And JPS Computers, Jesse. I want to shout out right now, we have new listeners. We have Rock Rage Radio out of Florida. It's a huge radio station, 2 million listeners a week. And we are now on every Monday night at 9 o'clock. This is exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, baby.
So today, Heroes Journey podcast, we actually have a good friend of mine. I call him my brother, and it's crazy how we met. But this guy, his story is insane. He is a 6-time world champion, UFC world champion. He is an actor, director now. He writes poetry. I'm going to out him on that stuff. He plays harmonica. He is this shirt I'm wearing every year, all year long. He is out to raise money for the Extreme Couture GI Foundation. It's a ride that goes on all the time. So without further ado, I'm Brian Hopkins, and this is...
I'm Danielle Vasanova.
And this is a Heroes Journey podcast. And we have Mr. Randy Couture on the show today.
How are you guys?
Dude, it's so good. It's so good to see you.
Good to see you too. Just got back from Nashville.
Love Nash.
Glad you reached out. I'm glad it fit in this week. It's great.
What were you doing in Nashville?
I had a salute to service from my foundation. There were 4 charities being recognized, and
thank you for your
through
service,
Jared Blake,
by the way.
And Daryl Worley was there. We get to sing the 22 and the whole thing. It was really good.
I left out songwriter. He's a songwriter. We wrote Holy Water together, and you wrote 22 with Jared Blake.
Jared Blake and
you wrote Holy
Eric
Water
Landis.
together?
We did.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Benny was just moving here, and I said, man, just come stay at my place. I got plenty of room. So he's sitting on my pool table with his guitar, comes up with this little riff. And I had never seen this process before.
Yeah.
I've been writing poetry since I was in college. I was a foreign language and literature major at Oklahoma State. And a lot of people, I never started sharing any of that stuff till I turned 50. Something about turning 50 and a half century's life experience. I don't know why the light bulb went on. And
I was at your birthday.
You guys played that night.
Yeah.
So I started sharing some of the things I'd written over the years, and these guys figured out that I'd been writing some prose and poetry and stuff. So they had this riff and this chorus,
I wrote a chorus,
and they were kind of stuck on it for 2 or 3 months, and they're like, "Dude, here, why don't you see if you can write the verses for this?" And so they gave it to me, and I'm like, "Really?" And I started singing it in my iPhone.
And I
still have that recording too.
I need to find. I have it. I have it.
Crawl under this table.
If you get him talking, I have it. I remember where I was. I was standing. I was in L.A. in my doorway, and I'm like, Randy Couture just sent me this, and I'm really scared to listen to it right now because what if I don't like it? How do I tell one of my good friends
How do I tell
I
him
don't like it? And I called you up immediately and said, we're not changing a word. He matched. I walked him through the process, and you know what? He didn't even trust me on this one. He goes, so I asked Daryl Worley, and I asked so-and-so,
I
and
did.
so-and-so.
I did.
Is this the real process?
I asked Gary Allan.
Yep.
I was like, this is how you do it too?
It is like,
because it seems so backwards to me.
Why?
No.
What's backwards about it?
I'd written what I thought sounded like a song, in poetry many times, but they come up with the riffs and the music, the tune first, and then
blah,
write
blah, blah.
lyrics that inspires out of them, which is this seems completely backwards to me.
And
but that shows you what I know.
Yeah.
Hey, it worked, right?
And it did. It ended up being the title. It's sitting up there. That's the title track. That's Elvis Monroe, Holy Water, in the corner there. And that's with you.
Yeah.
And so
how long did it take you guys to write?
I think it took me a night
Okay.
of tinkering around with it after I had the chorus and just kind of the tune, the melody, and started, putting some things down and then trying to sing them to match what he had given me. I mean, I do, but I don't know if I'd call it good. That's for sure.
He does sing. He gets pulled up with some of the biggest rock stars, country stars, and we started this thing together. It was like this, putting him on stage, and then it just kind of, he's playing harmonica, and then he's up there, and I'm like, yo, I'm sitting in the audience, and he's up there. You're up there singing.
I've been in some situations, I gotta tell you. I was on the stage in Nashville with Jada Marcus. Obviously, it's his charity event that I was there visiting. Ace Frehley
Wow.
And the bass player from Chicago and my happy butt. I'm like, one of these things does not belong up on this stage.
Like, am I dreaming?
Yeah, exactly. A pinch me moment for sure.
One thing that you two have in common, she got COVID and flatlined in front of a hospital. She had literally flatlined for how many minutes? 2 minutes?
In the hospital, but 3 minutes. Gone.
Wow.
Gone. Did you die?
No,
Didn't die.
came close.
I didn't die. They said
me.
maybe
Are you
10
back
more
from the
minutes.
dead?
They said maybe 10 more minutes and I would have been toast.
What happened?
I had a heart attack in 2019 in October. Yeah. Obviously, it's genetic. It's not a lifestyle issue.
Right.
I don't fit any of those categories. The doctors were scratching their heads, but
How did it-
I thought I popped a rib. I was working out
Okay.
up at Unbreakable, regular workouts, circuit training stuff I normally do all the time.
Sure.
And I thought, man, how did I pop a rib? I had this weird ache that wouldn't go away, and I finished the workout.
Was it hard to breathe?
No, I
almost,
wasn't
or-
having any of those kind of normal things that people who have heart attacks have. I was just had this weird ache, and I popped my ribs through wrestling and fighting many times. So I thought, man, how in the heck did I pop a rib?
Yeah.
It was a little duller than that, but it was kind of that same sensation, and it wrapped around, and
And then what?
I changed clothes and drove home. And I got home and I'm talking to Mindy, my girlfriend, and I'm like, babe, this is weird. It just won't go away. I think something's wrong. So we walk the 3 blocks over to Cedars-Sinai Hospital.
He walks with a heart attack.
I walked in and I tell the lady at the emergency room, I'm like, hey, I got a weird ache in my chest. I can't figure out what's going on. I thought I popped a rib, but maybe that's not what it is. She said, okay, well, have a seat. We'll get you in here in just a second. And 10 minutes later, they get me in. They hook me up to the EKG, and you'd have thought it was NASCAR.
Wow.
You're having a full-blown heart attack. They're throwing me on the gurney, ripping the clothes off, wheeling me up to
Oh
the
my
cath
God.
lab just like that. And it was crazy. And,
He walked into the hospital and walked out.
oh, yeah, I said I walked into this.
I'll walk
Son
on
bitch,
home.
I'm-
Yeah, he walks home.
walking home, too.
Crazy. Yeah, so
You got the
that's
heart of a
Look,
champion,
it's
right?
3 blocks. It's
Yeah.
a lot easier to walk than it is to try and
In
drive
LA.
at a
That's
park.
in LA, that is true.
Forget about it.
Although nobody walks in LA. Isn't that a
that's
song?
true. So it's what's crazy too is that you have you just shot Expendables 4. Mm-hmm. Where was that
Just
shot
finished
at?
for London, Bulgaria, and Greece.
Was it as fun as the other ones?
It was a
Because-
blast. It was a whole new. Everything's a little bit different. This one. Only 4 originals left.
Really?
Obviously, Stallone,
Yeah.
Statham, Dolph Lundgren, and myself were the only 4 in this one. In 4, the rest are all new folks. So,
Really?
and some very good new folks. You're going to see 50 Cent in there. And I've worked with 50 before. He's great. He's got a very special charisma, that guy. I like him. He's very smart.
That's really
Megan
cool.
Fox, Andy Garcia, a couple of younger ones.
What was it like to work with?
Levi Tran plays one of the Expendables,
Yeah.
and Jacob Scipio. He's going to be in the new Batgirl, the one they just decided not to release. He's supposed
Really?
to be the love interest in that. Great. Both of them were awesome. Great to work with. Really had a lot of fun. 2.5 months shooting that in Europe, and man, just had a blast. I think it's going to be a good one.
Did you have any
Congratulations.
scenes with Megan Fox?
Oh yeah, she's
What was she like
one
to
of the
work with?
Expendables. I enjoyed working with her. It kind of one of those things where I almost feel bad for her. I feel like she's so self-conscious because everybody's looking at her that she couldn't just relax and kind of be
Right.
herself, and it really kind of bums you out to see somebody that spectacular and gorgeous and has a great personality, but she's kind of very reserved and keeps to herself. Like she feels like everybody's judging her. That was the sense I had being around her. And Machine Gun Kelly was there a lot. He was amazingly gregarious and outgoing and super nice.
I'm gonna have to look that word up, by the way.
Not
Gregarious.
not what I expected, but super cool.
Wow.
Do you have any crazy stories from filming?
I think, obviously we shot Expendables II in Bulgaria,
Right.
And we had a death. One of our stunt guys was killed on that particular shooting,
Oh, I'm
which
sorry.
I guess is a lot more common than you'd think.
Yeah.
Sly was like, "Oh man, I had one of these guys slip and fall on set during a Rambo filming, and
No
they
way.
killed him instantly." And I was like, "Wow."
What
and,
happened in this?
It was actually my stunt double, which again is, kind of gets your attention. We're an first unit, which is up shooting dialogue and all close-ups and stuff like that in a different part of Bulgaria at the time. And they're down on this lake with second unit, which is a lot of the explosions and a lot of the crazy action stuff. And that's why they're using stunt doubles and stuff. And we're driving this kind of hybrid jet ski thing. And I'm driving this actually in the movie. I drive it. But this particular day, they're weaving. These gunships are chasing us, shooting, and there's big explosions in the water. And so the FX guy had put markers in the water so the guy knows where to turn. Well, one of those markers came unattached and drifted. So he turned where he thought he was supposed to turn. And he turned right over the bomb, and it went off and blew him. And this Chinese businessman stunt double right out of the boat. Well, they find the Chinese businessman right away and revive him, and he's fine. They didn't find this guy for 15 minutes, and we're unable to revive him, and he passed away.
Wow.
So it was 9-day investigation, big to do. The stuntmen were pissed because we had to keep shooting. I mean, you lose hundreds of thousands of dollars a day if you stop production, even though there was an investigation going on, which they determined was absolutely an accident.
Right.
The stuntman goes, you guys didn't even stop shooting. Of course, first unit kept shooting. We had to get things in the can, and that kind of bothered them. It rubbed them the wrong way. So they settled it. We made shirts. We did a bunch of stuff to commemorate this guy who lost his life on that filming. But yeah, that was an eye opener for sure. So then we roll into 3. We're shooting in Bulgaria again. We're over on Varna on the Black Sea, and they're making that look like Somalia, like Africa. And we're being chased by these, again, Jeeps and these big guns. And Jason Statham's supposed to be driving this big technical.
I remember this.
Big flatbed truck. It's first day on set, literally. First scene we're shooting. We're all getting tacked up. Jason's like, man, I've never driven one of these things before. Let me drive it down the alley. The stunt guys show us what they want us to do. So he gets in it. They back down the alley, and he comes flying down again. We're getting all tacked up and ready to shoot. He comes skidding in, doesn't stop. No brakes. Truck goes off the pier. 18 feet into the water. Here goes Jason. Everyone just standing there going, what the hell?
There goes the actor.
Sly pulls out his iPhone and starts recording. He's like, can you believe this? I can't believe it. Of course, he takes out a cameraman, 2 cameramen and a tripod with a big red on it, $80,000 camera in the drink. Everybody pops up, so thankfully nobody hurt.
I remember him saying he's a swimmer. He was a swimmer.
Yeah, he was a diver. Literally an Olympic caliber diver.
Yeah.
So not in a truck. But,
Right.
But he pops up, the cameramen pop up, everybody's fine. The rescue swimmers were there because we were working on the pier that day. That's natural protocol for safety and all of that. So nobody was injured. Jason had a bump on his head from hitting the front windshield when he hit the water.
Right.
And he had to get changed so we could actually shoot the scene. They brought in another flatbed, tested the brakes, it worked. So, but that was the way we started off 3. I'm like, man, after what happened in 2, then to start 3 off that way, we're all like, man, really? So
Wow.
thankfully nobody.
So
was
how
hurt.
lucky are you to get to play the same character in 4? That's
I mean,
landing a Marvel type of gig,
no, it's a blast to get to keep perpetuating Toll Road and growing him and and really kind of settling into who he is and how he fits into this team. And he's the glue in a lot of ways. He's the college educated guy that's always ranting about his cauliflower ears and quoting Nietzsche and just all these things that Sly wanted.
By the way, it's not.
Art,
I was gonna say
imitates life.
It's not unlike this guy. I'm telling you, man. Like the poetry and stuff that he reads. He'll sit and read. Because I have a photo of that day that you're actually writing. We were talking about writing the song, and Ben's playing the guitar. I'm sitting here, and you're reading poetry to us. And there are words I have to look up. And this guy spent years of his life, getting punched in the head, and
He's
it's
just a soft soul.
dude. You're amazing. And
Do you have a favorite poem that you've ever written?
Oh my gosh, I think the one I wrote in recent years is called Scars.
oh, you got to read it.
Yeah, I can read that. If this thing wants to open.
Get a shot of his leg. I want to see if it's shaking. I made him do.
Listen,
I made him do the harmonica on radio one day.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, I can do this. This isn't like getting punched in the head. No one's going to try and hurt me."
No, they forced me into playing that day.
His leg.
Oh, I got the shaky leg like you have no idea.
But we were.
And they're laughing at me. which wasn't helping. But that's the first time I've ever played the harmonica in public. I taught
Yes.
myself. It was not like I had instructions.
Right.
Did you always want to play
no,
the harmonica?
Someone had bought me a harmonica for Christmas one year. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. I'd love to learn to play that. And I just stuck it in my backpack and forgot it was in there, honestly. And then we're in the middle of shooting Expendables II. I'm there all by myself, literally hours in that trailer waiting for the next shot. I knew how that is.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I start ripping apart my backpack and cleaning it out. And I'm like, oh, wow, I forgot I had this. So I start pulling stuff up on YouTube. And I'm like, man, I'm going to play this 15 minutes every single day.
Okay.
By the end of the shoot, I had worn it out. I had to go buy a new one.
Wow.
But I was playing it every single day and starting to learn. There's lots of great videos out there that kind of give you some instruction and kind of help you sort it out. And it's a lot more complicated than you realize. A lot more complicated
Is
than I
it?
realized. And I really fell in love with it, though.
Did you
I
ever
haven't
think,
really
like,
been
when
able
you
to
were-
play much for the last 2 years. I've just been so dang busy.
That's a good thing. First class problems,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Did you ever think, like, as a little kid, that you would be, on these huge, massive movie sets? and-
Never in a million years. Never in a million years. In
I mean,
fact,
how
there's
did you-
sometimes I would rather get punched in the face.
You're asking him the question that you want to know about
trying
a
to find
hero's
this.
journey, though.
Yeah.
This guy.
Yeah.
Too many poems in here.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Why you find that? Randy Couture came in. What year was it? How old were you when you joined the UFC?
I was 33, almost 34. I was a month from my 34th birthday when I fought in UFC 13. That was my very first UFC. My very first fight. I jumped right in. My very first fight was with the UFC. I had saw some of the other wrestlers I knew, Mark Coleman and Don Fry. I went to college with Don Fry at Oklahoma State. So I saw them on a videotape and like, man, I know these guys. I wrestled these guys, both of them. And so I was immediately intrigued and saw the application of years and years of wrestling, basically. And there it is. And so was lucky enough back then. It was different. You filled out an application, said these are this is my credentials, my experience. And I mean, some of these guys are saying, oh, I had 300 pit fights. I'm like, what the hell is a pit fight?
Right.
I mean, how do you verify that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, prove it.
All my credentials are obviously in the wrestling world, collegiate wrestling and international wrestling. And they were like, we got enough wrestlers. We want more exotic martial artists, but we'll put you on our alternate list. This was in '96. A friend of mine actually filled the application out for me, sent it in with a tape of me wrestling. And again, at the time, Mark Coleman was the champ. There were several other, Dan Severn, Don Fry were competing from the wrestling world too. There've been other wrestlers that have been in and out, and they were just looking for something more exotic in the martial arts world. And this is back in the first generation of mixed martial artists that were all out to prove that their style of fighting was the best style.
Okay.
Right.
And we would quickly learn, and I kind of came in on the cusp of this transition from all of us realizing there is no one style
Right.
that incorporates everything you need to know. You better start cross-training. You better figure out what these jiu-jitsu guys are doing on their back down here, and you better figure out what that boxer or kickboxer is going to do over there. You're going to get your head knocked off, or you're going to get the hell choked out of you, honestly. So we started cross-training, and I'm kind of in that second generation of guys that kind of checked their background at the door and just started learning all the other stuff. And
Did you always know that you wanted to do that when you were young?
I
when you were a
started
kid?
wrestling at 10 years old to get my dad's attention. He was a deadbeat. He was never really around. I was lucky if I got to see him once a year, and usually that was hunting season, which was again one of those reasons why I like to hunt to this day, be in the outdoors and all that. We never ever killed an animal, but I got to be out in the outdoors and kind of connect with him.
Hang out with Dad.
Yeah, that's what you
with
wanted
Dad.
was
So
connection.
I
with
thought if
him.
I walked on that wrestling mat in junior high school that maybe he'd come around, and it didn't work. But I found my calling. I found my vocation.
Wow.
The place that I seemed to fit and flourish, and those coaches became that guy. Where he wasn't, they were there. They were the ones that kicked me in the butt and made me work. They were the ones that threw an arm around me and gave me a Dutch rub and said, it's going to be all right.
Wow.
They were important for sure.
Did your
in
dad
my
ever come
journey.
around?
I reconnected with him many years later, actually, when I started fighting. And it took him to several of my fights. He loved the fighting. And I got to know him a little bit and get to know who he was a little bit.
That
And
was
there's,
when?
There's
That
a
was when you
lot
were
more
how
to
old?
that story that came out much later.
Okay.
And I actually, through today's magic of DNA and all that, I learned a lot more about that story and why he was the way he was and why he wasn't really around that much. And that's a much deeper deal.
Yeah.
But a lot of things, focus is everything, and a lot
Right.
of things kind of became clear once I figured out what was
Which
what.
makes you such a good dad. You have such a close relationship with your kids because I can see that it was something.
Yeah, well, and I guess if there's been a downside to this public life and all this stuff, it's that they've made those sacrifices in time. They've grown up in gyms, around the world through wrestling, and then grown up with me off at training camps and getting ready for fights all the time. So if there's been sacrifices, it's been in those personal relationships, and certain with my kids. I'm a guy that's been divorced 3 times. 2 of those were definitely related to being in the public eye and being a professional athlete for 14 years.
I mean, we can go off, and this guy he came into a sport when you retire from it, and he started it then. You were a coach. We lived right down the street from each other for many years and didn't even know it in Oregon.
Yeah.
So
you didn't know each other in Oregon?
Not back then.
No, we met I was on stage and he was in the audience. And
they had a little residence.
They did.
They had a residence at Red Rock.
Yeah.
At the Rock Bar. And, another friend of ours, a mutual friend that we had, this guy named Mike, said, "Hey, let's go watch these buddies of mine. They're playing up there." So we came up and we walked in, and they literally, Ben
stops the show
song,
and he goes, "You're Randy Couture. You're my hero."
No way.
And
in the middle of the show.
In the middle. And I'm like, I know that name because, Ben would make me drive 35 miles in LA traffic, which is 2 hours one way, hit record while he's on tour because he was in Lifehouse at the time because Randy was his favorite fighter. So I'd record those fights and then drive back. And he'd come home and have them all stacked up, and of you fighting. So then we end up putting him on the spot, bringing him up on stage, and we became friends.
Taught me how to sing a song or two.
Yeah.
And
we had a blast.
And then I started on my own, kind of playing the harmonica. They kicked me in the butt and drugged me out there for that too.
Yep.
So
and featured him in the Backyard Country Barbecue video, which you were in as well.
Yep.
Trial by fire.
Exactly. Well, and I would always put you on the spot. Like anytime we would travel together, ask you to introduce us. And
I love that too. That was fun. The first time we went to Alaska was to introduce you guys and host that private little show you did up there.
Yeah.
And it was really, really cool, which then led to the Backyard Barbecue and Trick Pony and all those other folks.
All kinds of other stuff, right?
I think
Taking
you guys
over
need to go
radio
on a tour.
stations.
I know, huh? For real.
Yeah.
No, it's what we did, but
Take this show on the road.
you can't do that with this guy because I did autograph signings. Like we'd show up and do these autograph signings. Before you know it, Ben and I are just flipping pictures back and forth while people were walking past us to get to Randy. And the only night that they would stop and take pictures with us and get our stuff was the night of our show. No. Then they would kind of walk past Randy because at our shows it was girls. This guy is like a sausage fest. Donnie's here. Like every dude is like, Randy's my hero. Randy, and I'm like, guy,
Dancing with the Stars happened.
Yes,
and the
then it
demographic changed. Yeah, the demographic in MMA is 18 to 35-year-old males predominantly. Right. We gained a lot of female viewership after the first season of The Ultimate Fighter because of the drama in the house and all that stuff. And the gals seem to like that stuff. And then a bunch of sweaty guys running around half-dressed.
Yeah,
and
he has
like that.
His shirt is open while he's dancing. And I'm watching Randy dance on TV going, I'm watching Dances with the Stars right now, supporting my buddy. You did a good job.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, Mindy was
Who was your
always
partner?
laughs. Karina Smirnoff, and she was amazingly talented.
Yeah.
She choreographed all the 3 dances that we got to do. She literally from scratch choreographed those, and it's a weird and interesting process. I mean, you're basically signing up for a crash course in how to be a professional dancer.
Yeah.
And
Was it challenging?
I went in there in shape, and I still lost 9 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, Karina was like, "Dude, you sweat." I'm like, "Yeah, you think?" They don't call it late couture for nothing after practice. So, yeah, she kind of tripped out on me because I'm not the average person walking around. And she's like, "Come on, let's take a break." I'm like, "No, my lower body's not doing what you want it to do right now. Right. I can't take a break until I get this down." She's like, "You're weird, right?" I'm like, I like to work.
You got the heart of a champion.
And I'm going out on Mondays was show night. You did dress rehearsals and stage rehearsals on Sunday.
Yeah.
They were literally 7 days a week. You didn't get a day off. And Monday was the night of the show. So I'm rolling there smiling like, yes, let's do this. And she's like, You're not nervous? You're like, hell, nobody's punching me in the face.
See, that's his go-to.
I'm going to be fine.
Yeah, because I ask him about that. Like when you go to auditions and you do those kinds of things, you know, it's his approach.
I'm sorry, walking
like
those 4
that.
steps up into that cage sets the bar for being nervous and fearful pretty high.
Yeah.
So what's the big deal?
Exactly.
So they got a
You're
little
like, I'm not
camera
gonna-
and 2 people I've never met in my life that are not punching or kicking me.
This
I
is
can let it
cake.
hang out. Yeah, piece of cake.
So before we end this first segment, I want you and actually,
We
you
have
need to
our-
read
our
your poem.
Oh, let me read that.
What is it?
for you.
Scars? Scars, right?
Yeah, it's called These Scars. The ones on this body, the ones on this heart are worth their weight in silver and gold. They can be cumbersome at times, and occasionally my spirit feels tarnished, but it's that patina that gives me that unique character. It's what makes me shine the way I do. If I had it to do over again, I would not change a single one.
Nice, man.
Wow,
I think
that's
we need to wear
beautiful.
wear our scars with pride. We earn them, each and every one of them, and there's a story that goes with each and every one. And I talked to a lot of my vets about the same thing. Man, don't be bashful and shy about that stuff. You are a very unique person. Less than 1% of the population could do the things
Yeah.
that those guys do. You're not broken. You are special. Stop letting anybody tell you that you're broken.
Amen. I've got they had to cut a pericardial window here, so I have a scar here and 2 lung tubes. And I was going to get him lasered, and everyone's like, no, don't do it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
character.
Leave him. It's character,
I mean,
right?
if I could walk around with these on, what are you all worried about?
That's beautiful.
That
Thank you
is
for
really
sharing.
great. So our first half of a Hero's Journey podcast is coming to an end. But we're going to be back next week with the second part of Randy Couture. So Danielle Vasanova, Brian Hopkins.
Stay tuned.
Oh, yeah.
Dream, and I believe it's coming around to me.